Thank you.
Now, it's the most famous flying team in British history. Almost 75 years after carrying out the daring Dam Busters raid, the RAF 617 Squadron is being reformed.
Yep, it's to mark 100 years of the Royal British Air Force, and we can speak to Sophie Rayworth, who's getting a sneak peek of the new jets the team will be flying. And Sophie, morning, lovely to have you back on breakfast. You've also got a personal connection, haven't you?
I certainly have. If you have a look at this, this is a photograph taken in 1918 in France. It is a de Havilland daylight bomber. The man in the middle there that you can see is my grandfather, Captain Edwin Rayworth. He just turned 18, and these planes, they were made of wood. To drop a bomb, they literally pulled a piece of string. It wasn't exactly precision bombing. By World War II, of course, technology had moved on. And I have been to meet one man who played a rather important part in RAF history. Amazing aircraft, that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
George Johnny Johnson. He's 96 years old and the last surviving British member of World War II's famous Dam Busters raid. He joined the RAF in 1940, one of many teenagers who signed up to fight for their country. He says it was thrilling.
I'd do the same again, should the situation arise. And I find that the satisfaction, the personal satisfaction in being able to do that was probably more than anything else. And that's the sort of thing which I felt I was actually doing something useful and doing it well.
It was 75 years ago this May that 617 Squadron took off in their Lancaster bombers on their mission immortalised in the Dam Busters film to attack dams in Germany's industrial heartland using Barnes-Wallis's bouncing bombs. The planes Johnny Johnson flew are a world away from the aircraft used by the RAF nowadays, and he's fascinated not just by the technology on board, but also by the pilots learning to fly them.
I can't understand any of it. I don't know where to begin. It's a complete stranger, but it's not a Lancaster.
I've always wanted to do it since the age of 4.
Flying Officer Stephanie Searle is one of the RAF's newest pilots, in awe of the stories from the past.
I hope I can measure up to it, to be honest, because a lot of them joined up because of what was happening in each of the world wars, and it was determination and confidence in knowing they were doing what was right for their country. Where I've been lucky enough to choose this role for myself, they were thrusted into it and they just took to it and did the best they could. So I think it's more my ability to measure up to them.
Johnny Johnson was one of 133 men who took part in the Dam Busters raid. 53 of them never came home. He still remembers that night vividly.
I shall never forget that Dam's raid. The highlight of that trip for me was as we came home, our route brought us over what had been the Moan Dam, and we knew by radio broadcast it had been breached. There was water everywhere. It was just like an inland sea. That to me was sheer evidence there had been some success.
It's done! We've done it!
That raid remains to this day one of the most famous in the Air Force's history. So as the RAF celebrates its centenary, his advice to the next generation?
Whatever you do it to the best of your ability. You'll find it makes you happy. Had I had my time over again, I would do the same again and hope to get the same happiness and enjoyment out of it that I did for those 22 years I served. I have to say thank you to the Royal Air Force for providing that life for me. What a wonderful life it really was.
Johnny Johnson, he was absolutely wonderful. I have no idea what he will make of this technology though, because this is the latest state-of-the-art, cutting-edge new stealth fighter jet that's arriving in the UK later this year. It's the F-35 Lightning. Flying it for us right now is Squadron Leader Andy Edgell, who is at the moment based in America, test pilot for this. This, when it arrives, stands up as 617 Squadron, doesn't it? So the Dam Busters Squadron. Tell us what you're doing now and what it's like to fly.
So ultimately here I am in highly contested airspace, and what I've done is I've used the stealth characteristics of the F-35 to frankly sneak up on these adversary aircraft. And it's those characteristics that allow us to go where no other aircraft can go.
And it also can land vertically, which we've never seen before.
Yeah, that's correct. In fact, the F-35B is the world's first supersonic aircraft that can also land vertically on an aircraft carrier.
Very different to what you were flying before, Harriers.
Yeah, indeed. So I was a Harrier pilot by trade. And the main difference is the incredibly high level of automation that the F-35 brings. It's ultimately got cruise control on steroids in every axis. And it's very important because we don't want the pilot to be wrestling with his own aircraft. We want him to be concentrating on the adversary aircraft.
Well, I'm going to allow you to concentrate on what you're doing. You fly it for us because I'm going to go over here and talk to an RAF historian, Howard Tuck, because Howard, it is 100 years on the 1st of April that the RAF was formed. This new jet is going to be flown by both Royal Navy pilots and by Royal Air Force pilots, which is effectively how the RAF came together in the first place.
It is. The RAF emanated out of Royal Navy and Royal Flying Corps cooperation. There were army pilots that had been cavalry units before, so we've gone a full circle in many respects. Your grandfather certainly wouldn't recognise any of this technology.
No, I mean, it is extraordinary when you look at the kind of planes that they were flying. A manned flight had only just taken place, hadn't it? 15 years before?
Yeah, that's exactly the case. And it was quickly realised that this was a new form of warfare. And by the end of the First World War, by 1918, it had proven itself as having a fairly dramatic effect, a third element of warfare after land and sea.
And the significance of this jet, I mean, it's great timing, isn't it, in a way, because it's going to stand up as 617 Squadron, that very famous Dam Busters Squadron.
Yeah, the legendary squadron, of course, cut its teeth in World War II for the Dam Busters raid in 1943, one of the RAF's great squadrons, and it's testament to this aircraft and the squadron itself that it's going to be back on the front line again for the Royal Air Force. It's wonderful.
The pilots of World War I, World War II would certainly not recognise the technology that we have nowadays.
I think you look at an aeroplane and it's exactly the same job, but you're in a sense, we don't need the hundreds now to man the Air Force in the way it does. The technology that you're seeing here with Andy and the rest of it is refilling that, and therefore the personnel are more highly trained on the technology, which allows us to develop a much higher firepower, if you like.
Howard Tuck, thank you very much, and to Andy as well, who is flying it behind me. What do you reckon, Louise and Dan? Would you like a go? Apparently it's very easy to fly.
Well, I mean, sure, certainly, but only in the simulator. Sophie, thank you very much indeed. It looks absolutely amazing, and it's really, I'm sure on the 1st of April, on the anniversary of the Royal Air Force as well, we'll be looking at it again. But Sophie, thank you all.